I think it's just like running is a beautiful sport and it's an art and it takes you to some of the most beautiful places in the world. And I think that's what people want to see.
Welcome to episode 2 of Running the Show, where we take a look at the intersection of business and running. This is your co-host, Evan Schwartz. Today in this episode, we're going to sit down and talk to Brian Schroy, a 227 marathoner, founder of The Track Club, or TTC. We're going to dive all into what it means to run soft, and we're going to learn a little bit more about how you start a running brand from an idea, as well as get into all the details of charity running. Sit back and enjoy this episode of Running the Show.
Who am I?
Yeah.
My name is Brian Schroy.
Hi, Brian Schroy.
Hi, Brian Schroy.
Hi. How's it going?
Great.
Great.
Oh, that's awesome.
How are you?
So good. Just, drinking a non-alcoholic beer with no brand affiliation.
Is that where you're white knuckling it?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I figure hopefully I'll land you guys a sponsor by the end of this.
Oh, love that.
Oh, that'd be great. Well, we're so happy to have you on. You're our first guest.
Let's go.
Officially.
What a pleasure.
Yeah.
And an honor.
Yeah. Why are we here? And why are you here?
I invited you over for dinner.
Uh-huh. It was a good dinner.
10 out of 10.
And I think you guys just came to eat my food.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
True.
And we conned you into being on our podcast.
Yeah, you were like, I just happen to have a bag full of mics and computers. So it worked out really well.
You've been on other podcasts before.
I have.
What have you talked about when you've been on other podcasts before?
I've talked a lot about myself and my journey into running. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you could give us like a drive-through Spark Notes version of that without the whole episode being dedicated to just your running, because this is Running the Show, but we're not necessarily talking about running.
Yes.
What would be like Spark Notes, just so people can kind of get up to speed?
Spark Notes. I used to be fat and party too much and was an avid snowboarder that got very burnt out and got hurt. And somewhere in my late 20s, I found running through my now wife, who was training for the Boston Marathon. And in my recovery process, the first thing I could do was run. So I trained with her through her Boston Marathon block and then kind of fell in love with it. And I've been at it ever since for like 6 years now, 7 years, 6 years. I don't lose track of time. Dog years.
Dog years.
Yeah.
And you've been in the Boulder area for, I feel like, as long as all of us have been combined, right?
Probably
Yeah.
about that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've been here for over like 12 years now.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Went to see you. Didn't know there was running. Didn't know they were one of the best teams in the country. Yeah. So surprise.
Did you see people when you were like out on the hill, crawling home Sunday morning, like going for their long run and stuff? Did you see people and be like, whoa, those people are like lame or they're nerds and stuff? Or did you have like a respect for running in some sort of way when you were here at CU Boulder before you started running?
I didn't really have a respect for running until I moved back to Boulder. But I mean, I knew it was a very active city. I think that's one of the first things you notice in Boulder is how fit everyone is. And then you kind of feel like, is this a swearing podcast?
We bleeped it, so you can do it.
Okay, I'll swear.
Well, okay, what kind of swears are we talking
Yeah.
about?
Okay.
Well, I was going to say, you kind of feel like a piece of crap when you're, walking around as like the hungover college student and you're just looking at the world's fittest people walking down Pearl Street.
Totally.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things that we've talked about even recently as well is like when you returned to Boulder and started running here, you did all of your long runs on the creek path.
Yes.
And for the folks who have never been to Boulder, like, can you describe the creek path?
Oh, yeah. Well, first off, Boulder ends at Boulder Reservoir in my mind. You have to pay the fine to go swim in the reservoir, which is always contaminated, and no one goes. So I didn't know that the Boulder Res, the farm roads, were an option. So I put myself on this windy path, creek path, bike path. It's essentially a long bike path.
Paved.
paved the whole way.
Yeah.
A lot of interesting characters you'll find sleeping along the creek path. And I was like, I turned to my wife Erin when we first moved back here, and she was like, "This is where you run," and I was like, "Oh, this is it. This is where people go.
This is where people
This
come
is
to get
this
fit."
is why
Yeah.
people move to Boulder so they can run on this bike path." Lo and behold,
That's the first half of Running with the Buffaloes.
Yeah,
is
yeah.
actually just
Yeah.
describing the creek path in intimate detail.
Yeah,
too,
it's true.
That's where CU
That's
does
true.
most of their training.
Yeah. Mags is actually just the creek path.
Paved bike path.
Yeah.
What if that could be the biggest illusion, that it's actually like all of the content ever captured on Mags is actually like a quarter-mile stretch of dirt, and the rest of it's just fucking paved.
Yeah. Well, the irony is now I live on the creek path, and I feel like
Yeah.
I'm always on it again.
But
Yeah.
knowing it, like you know
Yeah.
what you're opting into
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
what you're opting out of.
And it's a necessary evil. Like, if I'm going to the airport early, I'm like, okay, the creek path is going to be lit. I can at least get a few miles out there. And, CU's running out there all the time because it's right off campus, but it's not the best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting, kind of the comparison about how you choose to spend a lot of your early Wednesday mornings now versus how you might have spent early Wednesday mornings in college when you were here previously. You are a founder of something called Soft Hour in the track club,
Mhm.
and that's what we're going to be talking about in excruciating detail.
Mm,
and
good,
exploring
good.
and stuff. But for the people watching the video, you have a logo on your sweatshirt. Drew has a logo on his hat. I have a chain with even an ice cream
Oh,
logo
look
on
at
it right
him.
here. So what is this like logo that we see multiple places?
Yes, this is the logo for the track club. And the track club is a little group. We meet every Wednesday for an easy hour, 7 a.m., different location. Usually not on the creek path because we seek soft surfaces. And the logo is dedicated to Soft Hour because it's soft for an hour, soft surface, soft conversations. So we got a little soft serve going on here.
Interesting. I feel like there's a lot to it, and I know Emma, before we started recording, was asking me all about it. So Emma, what questions do you have about
Whoa.
TTC and
Mhm.
Soft Hour?
So I really want to know, because I joined, the track club after it had been founded. So I really want to know, like, how did TTC actually get founded, and what did that come of, and like tell me how about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of like a classic COVID story where we were classic COVID story. Yeah, we were our own team that kind of decided to break off from our original coach, but we had spent all summer working out together, and you kind of had these small pods, but the one thing you could kind of safely do was run outside. So we had more and more people wanting to run as a group, see your friends, enjoy some company, enjoy some conversation, but they were always kind of like, you guys run too fast. That classic, oh, you're a runner, you're too fast for us.
Yep.
And it was like, no, we'll just run soft was the concept. Like it doesn't have to be pace based. We'll just go out for an easy hour and anyone can tag along. And that's how Soft Hour was formed. It's just, trying to create a community when people were so desperately looking for one. So
What was special about the day of the week that it originally fell? Because it used to not be Wednesdays, right? Or was it always Wednesdays? There was like something special about why you could run easy and slow and why it was accessible. What was like the original idea about like Soft Hour?
Well, I just noticed that most people's schedules always leave Wednesday as the easy day. So if you're on a Tuesday, Friday schedule, or if you're on a Monday, Thursday schedule, Wednesday is still available for you. And we have some people who like run medium longs, but they'll just add a couple miles before or after, and that's totally optional, But Wednesday is usually the day that everyone can come meet and run easy.
Some of the questions that I have are also associated to like timeline with this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think all of us here resonate with the message, and folks probably see this logo or they've approached us about it to say like, what's that?
Uh-huh.
You know, and they want to know more. Where in the timeline did creating the logo come in? Was it like, oh, we were just meeting every Wednesday, and then like, I don't know, 6 months later we just thought it'd be cool to have like gear? Or, you know, when did that come up? And then also describe like the importance of having a visual identity.
Mm-hmm. Well, the logo originally came up, we were trying to create a logo for our old team that was not just a track or a runner like that we've just seen so many times. Not other
classic.
Yeah,
logo.
I mean there's great track logos, don't get me wrong, but we just didn't want something that said like, this is a running team, like solely a running team. This is about fun. This is about, you know, approachability. And what's more approachable than ice cream? So I think that the logo kind of came out to like, you know, appeal to anyone and make running more of an approachable thing than just like, okay, clearly these people are really into running around the track. They have our track as their logo. Or, you know, there's big mountains. They're probably some team in Boulder.
That's true. There is a huge overlap of elevation, mountains, things of that nature. It's really saturated, especially when like the name is so on the nose of the track club, right? It's low hanging fruit to be like, well, got to put an oval in there somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Or some lanes. And when you were starting off with Soft Hour, was it a goal for, you know, attendance to grow, or is that something that naturally kind of went in that direction? Like, how conscious were you of the growth?
Yeah.
And what role
I
did you play in it?
mean, for the growth, it actually was never really the intention. It kind of happened naturally, and more people started asking about it. And I think a lot of it was the logo of like, what is this, you know? And then we created an Instagram channel, which is where we post our runs, and people got curious about that. And I'm always getting the DMs like, is this open to everyone? And it is. But for me, I also probably should have mentioned in my snapshot about my running background is before I got into running, I was very involved in the outdoor sports, the skiing and snowboard world. And the two industries are very similar, and everyone knows each other. You know, it's all community based. And when I got into running in Boulder, I felt like community was lacking. The teams were very closed off. And, you know, professionals didn't talk to amateurs, and, you know, this club didn't talk to this club. So you weren't getting to know the other runners. And, you know, it's very hard to like share this passion with all these people in town when you don't know them. So this was kind of a way, like, everyone has to run easy some days on the week, like hopefully it's Wednesday if you want to join us. But like we picked a time that like other people didn't really have an excuse of like, oh, I can't run that day because I'm going to be running more easy than you or less easy than you. So it was really about building the community. And that was my bigger goal, was like to just get people coming out from like different walks of life. And not being so closed off. And I didn't care if that was like 5 people, as long as they were like 5 unique people So, I mean, our groups range. We've had like 40 people, close to 50 people. We've had 5 people, and I don't really care how many people we get, as long as we're like, you know, sticking true to like the core value of having community and people coming from all over.
Totally. I think it's interesting if you go to the track club on Instagram, and we'll link in the show notes below, right? That's every podcast says that. Yes. You can like scroll all the way back to the beginning. And I did it the other day just because it's fun, but you can see the evolution going from, you know, summer 2020 where everybody ran with the like neck gaiters around and it's, you know, 3 or 4 people, and then blossoming all the way to even this morning when it was close to single digits. There's 20 crazy people like out on snow and ice and stuff. And the fact that, you know, sometimes if you pinch and zoom on the picture a little bit, you can see, you know, some casual Olympians that are joining.
Totally.
Some people that are like brand new to the area. So I think it's really cool to see just a standard group run and the
Yeah.
accessibility. Because I felt the same thing when I moved to Boulder. I don't know, Drew, you maybe didn't feel the same exact way, but I'm interested in your opinion. When I moved to Boulder, I thought everybody would show up to Tom Watson at like 8 a.m. on the weekends, and it's like, yeah, come on, let's go run like a great workout,
Yeah.
everybody. And
Yeah.
it was very
And
apparent.
everyone's the same pace.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
everyone
Yeah.
has the perfect
Yeah.
hydration and
Yeah,
fueling.
exactly. It was very apparent that was not the case. It was some people who are very fast will literally not acknowledge you as a runner as they run past you,
Yeah.
like on the farm roads and stuff. And that's like the bitter reality, I guess, a couple of years ago. I don't know, Emma, if you feel similar sort of way.
Yeah, my experience was that I came into Boulder knowing that it was more of like this closed off group situation. So it felt very precarious to me, where it was like, oh, I have to join a group to be able to run with people. Like there wasn't like a group run setting or anything like that. And so it felt very much like, oh, I have to like hurry up and decide what group I want to be in, so I then have people to train with. And so it felt very rushed. And I felt like I couldn't really like explore very much, because I also was trying to get into shape. So I wanted to work out with people. But there really wasn't like these like group workouts or group runs or group long runs that were happening. Like it was like these closed off groups, as I said before. And I was like, well, which one am I going to join, so I can like get into shape and do all these workouts, and have people to train with. And so I think it's interesting that now, with Soft Hour, you've really turned it into this more community, arena for people to come and show up and run easy. Like, how do you see yourself like in that community like role, like now that Soft Hour has been built up for like a couple years now?
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised every time I show up and people are there in the parking lot. I'm like, what's going on here? But yeah, I mean, it's really cool that we do have new faces almost every week. And that continues to shock me, but I kind of really try to meet everyone and get to know everyone who shows up. And that's kind of, what I see as my role is kind of, I hide out in the background. I never get in the photo. I always tag.
That's true.
I always take the photo, but I just want it kind of to be this like safe space for anyone. And my role is to have new people who are, visiting Boulder or new to Boulder or just looking for people to run with, to like have a safe space to go run and not feel that pressure of I'm not good enough.
I think two things that stand out to me in terms of like the qualities that you have as the leader of that group in that space is, one, like coming from a non-collegiate background, I think is really important and interesting, where your thought about like comfort and accessibility, I think is helped by you finding this activity and finding the sport at when you did and how you did. Whereas like if you were in a traditional team space, I think that's a really aggressive departure to do something like what you're doing now.
Yeah.
And the other side that I think is a quality that, lends to what you do is from the, like, you have a background in PR. I think that really lends itself to like the way you engage with people, the way that you kind of like market the group in general. I think it's super cool because I was aware of the group before I came out here. And by the time I took my first trip, it didn't coincide with a Wednesday, but I knew who I was going to see because of, what I saw on Instagram.
Yeah.
And it was like an accessible experience in that I wasn't going to have to, compile a group of people or anything like that. I knew that.
You know where to go on Wednesday.
Yeah. Plug and play experience.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Super cool.
Yeah, and I think like, one of the most memorable Soft Hours for me was the one like summer 2020 where we had the whole New York crew out. We had Lost Boys crew, Sidious Mag crew, and that was like our first really big run.
Is that when you felt like, okay, this, like, we actually have something
here?
here?
We're like, something's catching on. That like people are like, oh, we need to come do Soft Hour if we're in Boulder.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, it's spreading.
Well, and I feel like it helps too when it's people maybe like Tim Rossi and Chris Chavez that are like, hey, we're in town. We got to come like check out this run that we see on social media and Strava, right?
Yeah.
Like every single week and stuff. And so it's like interesting that it spreads as far as like the East Coast, West Coast, international. You've had some people like reach out. I know from like Europe
Yeah.
asking to like get merch.
Oh
and
yeah,
stuff
we've
Yeah.
sold.
like that,
We've sent
too.
merch to Germany, Australia, Canada.
So what is the well, I feel like I know because in that closet, and then there's like a label printer like right over here off camera and stuff. Like, what is merch look like how does that story kind of like develop, getting to a point of, yeah, you have a logo that maybe you can throw on social media? How do you decide to then put it on t-shirts and then start selling it?
Yeah, I mean, it's always just kind of been a passion project, and I've always, kind of cared about what I wear in some capacity. Yeah, but like, yeah, I mean, I just want to make stuff that I think is cool and that I hope others people think is cool, and that's why we came up with a fun logo. And yeah, it's just we're trying to spice up the running world a little bit, and it's kind of very interesting who we've seen either request merch or purchase merch. So it's catching on a bit.
What are the different types of merchandise with the logo that have like been made?
I mean, yeah, we've partnered with Cieli and done custom Cieli hats. Those did very well. We actually have a new
Those are
batch
sick.
coming, a more custom batch coming up. Yeah, so you're gonna have to wait for spring, summer. But we also have a partnership with Tracksmith, so we've done some exclusive merch with them, and then obviously your basics, sweatshirt, t-shirts.
Yeah.
So, I think things got very slow in COVID, and there was more time to like make merch and design merch, and then work kind of came back full force, and there was a little slowing. But yeah, for 2023, I think we're going to do a lot more with the track club and merch and all that. So
interesting.
yeah.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
So stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Foreshadow.
The question I had that kind of stems off of that is, what is, we're talking about a movement more so than just like a group meetup,
Yeah.
right? This is something that you want people to adopt, like the ideology, and that's why it's so interesting to see, people from New York and people from LA and from Europe to all resonate with the idea. What role does merch play in kind of like disseminating the idea?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just spreading awareness and
Yeah.
getting people to talk about it. I think that's the unique thing about the ice cream cone is people are like, what is that? Like, if you look at my Strava, every Wednesday it's just ice cream cone emoji.
Yeah.
Nothing else.
People want to be a part of the ice cream emoji
Everyone wants-
Strava
yeah.
caption.
Yeah, exactly. So it gets people talking, and I mean, it's not rocket science. It's just running slow. So I hope more people can practice it.
I think the important distinction there, though, isn't necessarily like running slow. Like, sure, typically there's a cap on like, let's not run faster than 7-minute pace, especially because we're at altitude in Boulder and running on hilly terrain sometimes, or ice on the road sometimes too. But it's like running easy. And that's like the thing. I feel like initially the start of it was an easy run per week that we were doing, because we were doing a Tuesday hard workout, a Friday hard workout, a Sunday hard long run, strides on like Monday and Thursday outside of that. So like Wednesday was the day where you're like, oh, I can breathe and I can like actually go and enjoy the run and stuff. And then we also had a small group of like, people at first that could just like run together and run easy as a group, but like easy was the whole thing around it.
Totally. Well, I think it's hilarious because to your point about the workouts is I noticed I went to Boston this year and I ran 2:28:28. Yeah. And then we were all at the track house afterwards and people kept coming up to me and being like, I didn't know you were kind of fast. And I'm like, I have the reputation now of being the guy who runs easy. And and it's happened ever since. Like every race I've done, it's like, oh, I had no idea. I thought you were like the guy who just runs easy. I'm like, no, I do more than run easy. And yeah, I mean, slow is such a relative term. And I think one of the things we would love is like, as the group continues to grow, is kind of to have almost like different pace groups, because it's kind of naturally forming now where people don't feel like they have to stick to the front, but half the time I'm in the back. So I think it's really slow and comfortable for you. It's there should not be like a true speed limit. If you're, Joe Klecker and want to come run with us, you can still run 6:45s all day. But
hear that, Joe?
Yeah.
The rest of your teammates have come.
Yeah.
We have pictures of them.
Yeah.
That's true. Now, to that point, right? I was going to ask, is there's the kind of the lifestyle merch that you're wearing, and like the t-shirts and the hats to some extent, but there's kind of the performance merch as well, right? Because you did a singlet and shorts, and I was going to ask how you reconcile the brand image of Soft Hour and the Track Club logo with race day. And how can you have it both ways?
I think that the community aspect kind of came second and is the primary focus, but the race stuff, that's kind of like more of the OG people who have been around since day one, and I think that there's room for both. Like if you show up and want to race in our stuff, then we want you to race in our stuff. Anyone who posts and tags us that like comes to our weekly runs, I think of you as someone on the team. I'm totally down to have people racing our stuff whenever, but I think that it's kind of a unique situation where I just think that if you're showing up, it's almost, I don't want to say it's like the November project, but like it's a matter of like just keep showing up. And if the people that do keep showing up, like you are part of this club.
And something that I think about when you're talking about folks who are tagging and kind of resonating, maybe they're putting an ice cream cone on their Strava run as well. Do you envision, maybe a world where there are different chapters of Soft Hour?
Oh,
like
absolutely.
East Coast, West Coast?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the New York people are always like, New York East Coast Soft Hour. I'm like, do it. Do it. Well, absolutely.
That's a huge challenge for them to actually run soft.
I know.
Bro, the bridle path, let me tell you.
Yeah.
Well, I know that they have soft surfaces, but I'm just saying nobody runs slow in New York.
That's true. I mean, I think our biggest rival now, we got the Hard Hour crew coming at us on social media. But I mean, take it, run with it, tag us, start a Soft Hour in London. Let's do this.
That is like one of my favorite things to see on social media is when people who are either like out of town or they're traveling, or they're back home and they're still running a Soft Hour wherever they are.
Oh yeah.
And then like they have the merch on.
Yeah.
And
it's the
they're
best.
tagging,
It's the best.
TTC and Soft Hour, like with wherever they are. And like I love seeing that.
Yeah.
Where it's just like,
too.
I'm still getting my hour in easy. I love that.
Yeah. I have people always hitting me up from different states being like, oh yeah, I got my Soft Hour in. I'm like, awesome.
Yeah.
Send us a pic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love it. Totally. So you said TTC, the Track Club, and Soft Hour, Soft Hour weekly event we talked about can be different places. Is it a brand if there are pieces of merchandise around it? And is TTC a business in your mind, or is it more of like that community movement and stuff? And then depending on the answer, what are like the different plans you might have evolving the kind of answer that you might give? Yeah,
I mean, I think that TTC is the platform. And I think that as avid runners, there's a lot of opportunity to do more with the TTC brand outside of Soft Hour, whether that is TTC media, doing podcast stuff.
Interesting.
Interesting.
Or creating more groups like this across the country, or just proving to people that we don't only run easy and start creating more of a like structured team or a high performance team, stuff like that. So I think that Soft Hour will always be the Wednesday group run, but the other channels that can come from it, that's where that's the differential between TTC and soft hour.
Totally.
When I like to think that like I can run hard and fast in the TTC singlet because I go to soft hour.
Yeah, for
you
sure.
So,
yeah, you're earning your stripes.
Yeah, I think that's like a big part of it. And, I really like the idea of that anyone coming to soft hour can race in the TTC singlet. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Because they're representing and they're there. And then especially if you were saying that, TTC can be like a business platform. But I think to Evan's point too, like I think it can also be like a community forming space as well. Like not only is there like media, is it a media platform, it's a merch platform, people are racing, but also they're creating this community space that really like is needed in Boulder, honestly. We've mentioned that there's just not like, there's really not any open group runs in Boulder that I can think of off the top of my head other than soft hour.
Yeah.
So
I think you get your like local businesses every now and again will be like,
that's
all
true.
right, we're going to host this. And
and
there is stuff, but it's just different. There isn't the same like, corporate meaning behind it of like, come check out our business for, an hour every Wednesday night. It's more just like, come run, let's go talk about dumb things. It'll be great.
There's more like culture behind soft hour than like the corporate, like, local running store group run.
Yeah. And today was soft hour this morning. It is Wednesday that we are recording on this, but I was having this conversation this morning about like, we just goof off and talk about random stuff. And I think that it's like running is such a part of our life that we almost don't want to talk about it at soft hour, which I think is usually very unique, where I feel like the majority of like group long runs I've gone to, it's always like, what's your next race? What's your PR? Like, what are you training for? And that's just like the conversation starter where we're like, man, you get snow tires on that rig? Like, just dumb stuff.
Well, speaking of racing and, racing in the TTC singlet, tell us about your job, which is Haymakers for Hope. Charity bib and racing. I'm so intrigued by that.
Yes.
That was so smooth.
Yeah,
that was amazing. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. So when I'm not focusing on TTC or soft hour, I work for a nonprofit called Haymakers for Hope. We are a organization that traditionally has hosted boxing events to raise money for cancer. We take people who have never boxed before and we give them a 4-month training block. And after 4 months, they get in the ring for their first amateur fight. So what also takes 4 months to train for? A marathon. A marathon. So
what beats you up more, going through the boxing thing or going through a marathon training?
Oh man,
the fundraising.
The fundraising. So recently, my role pivoted from working on the fight side of stuff to launching the running division of our organization, where we now have bibs for the Boston Marathon, New York City Marathon, Berlin Marathon, Chicago, Falmouth Road Race, New York City Half. So it's been very rewarding, and I kind of get to meet a whole new wave of athletes every race, and I get to kind of coach from behind the scenes, and also very community based. We've kind of created a online community between the other runners who run for Haymakers and also alumni that have gone through our other programs.
There's something you told me as well early on is in the fighting side of things. I think through adjudicating bodies, people can only raise money and fight through the boxing side one time.
Yes, correct.
And the great way that people can stay within the Haymakers network time and time again is through the running side. There's no limit on that.
Yeah.
So it's a great, I think people were reaching out, wanted to fight again.
Yeah.
And you're like, I can't let you.
Yeah, totally.
Right?
I mean, it's all a matter of like, you get such an advantage that first time you step in a ring that it's like unfair to go through the process again.
Sure.
So yeah, just to keep everything even, but you're only racing against yourself. So, and we have so many more opportunities with the running just because there's so many different events. And the fundraising is so widespread from races that have $1,000 minimums all the way to $10,000 minimums. So you can kind of pick and choose.
Explain that a little bit more. How does the fundraising work for that, for
Yeah.
the charity bibs?
Yeah, so it's usually either set or recommended by the actual race.
Okay.
So every individual is responsible for their own fundraising. We give you your own page. We give you tools to help you with your fundraising, but you're responsible to reaching out to your network and raising whatever that fundraising minimum is. So yeah, it varies very much. New York City is usually 5,000. Boston's usually 10,000. But yeah, you get to race a sweet marathon that you might not have gotten into before. So
yeah,
I have 2 questions to kind of stem off of that. First one is, what's the most creative fundraising idea you've seen one of your athletes take on?
Oh man, I mean, we've definitely seen some cool stuff like custom drinks at the bar of like, this is like the Haymakers cocktail. You tend to see some of that, or like gyms will get involved and be like, everyone's getting a free class today if they donate X to Haymakers. We've seen pizza parties. People like, hey, you want a slice? It's all going to my fundraising page.
Cool.
But yeah, I mean, the most powerful way to fundraise, which is often the last time people, the thing that people try to do is send emails. Yeah. It's unbelievable, but they're like, oh man, I put this Instagram post up and no one donated. But as soon as you get personal, then it's a lot harder to just say no.
You get into someone's inbox.
Yeah, when you're like, hey, hey
Yeah,
John, we've been friends for how many years, and I noticed you still haven't donated to my page. Like, that works more than like, yo, shout out to Kenneth for donating on my Insta.
The other question I had too, that kind of like zooms out a bit, is what's the process that you have to go through as a charity organization to even get bibs?
Oh yeah, it's a lot. I got
a whole other thing that
calendar reminders like every few months. But yeah, I mean, you have to reach out to the organization, and then it's a full application process. And now we're kind of up and running. I think it's kind of one of those things where like, once you get 1 or 2, like they see that and it's like, what other races are you involved with? And it helps move the needle. But we got rejected year after year for like New York, Boston, Chicago, all of them. It took us like 3 years to like actually get established in these races.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we're in now.
Yeah.
Hopefully still.
Something I'm kind of interested in, you talked about how if somebody's doing Haymakers for Hope, which before I finish the question, I have another question. The scale of events you put on, I went to the Denver one last time where Drew was one of the commentators. It was so fun to see. What is like the scale of money generated for charity at something like Denver, but then New York? Like what is the amount that is being funded as fundraisers for the charity?
Totally. I mean, it is white collar boxing at its finest, and these people are usually, living in affluent areas. A lot of them are working pretty high end jobs, and people want to donate to them because they like and support them, and people also want to watch them get punched in the face. So either way, they might donate. But yeah, I mean, Denver continues to grow year after year. I think we're raising about $400,000 at that event, and then New York, I think, brought in like 1.6 million in one night.
Wow.
Yeah, this year. So we had our biggest fundraiser, single fundraiser, and then group fundraising.
Yeah.
Both this year in New York. So
you're talking like big, like large scale.
Yeah, we sold out in a day, I think, this year for New York.
The production value on these things is unmatched.
Yeah.
Like, it's really well done. The audio and video they do, even just like the operation side of supporting athletes through their journey, because it's 4 months.
Yeah.
Like you can't fake that and just show up. Like,
yeah, we pay for their gym memberships if they don't have one.
Okay.
Yeah, we match you with a trainer. We send you your gloves, your wraps, all that stuff. So
The quarters to put in the gloves.
that's right. That's right. Yeah.
I remember one of the things that you would have to do when you're on the boxing side of things, you have to go to the gym to see them practice and see them spar each other, just to still make sure that it's going to be a good matchup.
Yeah,
or like
exactly.
A fair matchup.
Yeah.
So, like stemming off of Evan's question, comparatively, I think of the production value of that event, and it's top notch, and that's why people go, and that's why it is what it is. But I think of on the running side, like the overhead's totally different.
Yeah, and that's kind of the beauty of it. Yeah, I mean, as an organization, we have to purchase the allotted bibs, but we don't have to put on a major marathon at the end of the day. But somebody else does. Yeah. So that is the nice factor with the marathons, is that we're not hosting anything at the end; it's already being hosted for us, and that means that the revenue from the fundraising goes directly towards the organization without, any of the production or that.
Yeah.
One, I guess the original thing that I was curious about too was the pipeline of getting people that are super interested in punching other people in the face and getting punched in the face. They can only fight once in an event, but turning that passion into being connected to the organization like Haymakers, turning into Haymakers Harriers and getting them started down, a path of marathoning, but then maybe getting them into running when they never thought they might have. Do you have any like interesting stories of people that have maybe followed that sort of pipeline and stuff? Because you had mentioned that was sort of similar to what you had done to get into running.
Totally.
And it's a very renewable thing where you beat up your legs and not necessarily get punched in the
face.
I
mean, as someone who has boxed in competition and run marathons, I think that there's like kind of nothing else I could compare physically and emotionally. You cross the finish line of your first marathon and you're just crying for no reason. The same thing with boxing. But yeah, I think that people kind of look for these physical challenges, and once they realize they can't have that boxing opportunity again, it's very similar, the challenge that it's going to take mentally and physically to get to the finish line of a marathon. But I also think that like the journey, start to finish is just totally unique. And that my personal issue when I was boxing was the subjective scoring. And you might think that you are like Rocky Balboa out there, but then you can lose your fight. And I think that doesn't happen with running. It's a competition that's based on the clock. And I think that people can very much surprise themselves and get that same feeling that they got at the end of the fight, at the end of a marathon. And that gets it very addictive. And I think that, what was really interesting was 2020, we got 8 Boston bibs, and I think 3 people in our group, my boss included, shout out Andrew, all were training, to run the Boston Marathon. And a month before the event, it got canceled. And then it was always like, when's it going to get rescheduled? What's next? Am I going to just train for like 6 months and then get to do whatever opens? And we kind of formed this like mini run group in that process. And then running just became routine. And now Andrew and some of the other individuals in that group have gone on and, run New York City Marathon, run Chicago Marathon, run Philly Marathon. And that original chat of like, what's next is still going on a daily basis of like, all right, are you in for Chicago? Are you in for Boston next year? Are you in for Berlin? So I think that like, it goes back to that community piece, working towards a greater goal with a group of individuals. And I think that a lot of people can learn a lot about themselves through that process and make new friends and, find new challenges and new goals at a later age in life.
Totally. Yeah. I think it's super cool to take the same journey, works as an organization, like maybe getting somebody that has no boxing experience whatsoever, but then continue that pipeline and give them something that is renewable. And it's something that's like invigorating and exciting. And again, for a good cause too.
Yeah.
I think too, the interesting thing with what you do in addition to creating that community with Haymakers Harriers, is, I mean, you're coaching people as well. Like, what are some challenges that you found in either maintaining that balance of community leader and coaching, or just like flat out, what's the hardest thing that you've had to encounter as a coach?
I mean, I will say that coming from the boxing end of things, the easiest thing is not dealing with other coaches, because traditionally I was the middleman, and everyone has their own idea of how people should be boxing, or when people need to show up to the gym. And I think that's kind of the beauty of the running program, is it's very much on your own, and I just give the instruction. But I think people are a lot more afraid to get hit in the face than run a marathon. So I haven't encountered too much. I mean, obviously people have had some like minor niggles or stuff come up, and it's always kind of like, hey, I probably go see that PT now, or cross train for a little bit. So I think the biggest issue I see as a coach is like the doubt of getting to the start line. But so far we've had every person who signed up for a race finish the race, even in New York this year.
That's impressive.
Yeah, that's really impressive.
Yeah. We had some people stop and cool off in medical tents, but they all got back out and finished.
All right.
Yeah.
Do you have a dream guest that you'd like to hear on our podcast?
A dream guest?
Yeah. Who do you want to be on the pod? Who would you want to interview on our podcast?
Yeah.
Just, if you were asking the questions.
Oh man, it's gonna have some thought. Who's doing some cool stuff in running? I guess a lot of people are.
There's a good place to start.
Yeah,
that's a good place to start.
I mean, I think there's so many people doing interesting things in running right now. I think the CLA crew is doing very cool stuff. How'd you make a cap into a running product?
Yeah.
I think the guys over at Atreyu are doing very cool things. They'd be fun to interview. And yeah, I think Kipchoge should just always be here. He doesn't even need to say.
Well, we've got a surprise for you, Brian.
Yeah, we should. If we had Elliot on, we should only talk about like the farm that he runs.
Yeah.
And just nothing about running.
Just his business side,
Yeah.
like his
Yeah,
personal
exactly.
business.
Yeah, 100%.
We'll be like,
Tea
let's talk
farm.
about this like team NN, like what's going on there?
Yeah.
From a business.
How does that work?
Yeah.
And then it's great you've run 201, but like I really want to know like the stats of NN.
That's good. The other second question, following up, because I forgot about the dream guest, because Brian's my dream guest, so I feel
all right, podcast over, one and done.
The thing that we talked about, and definitely the first and only time we recorded our first episode together,
definitely,
was what would you change about the sport of running if you could change one thing, have it like instantly changed? And so like for some context, I said I would change the approach to doping control and improve doping control budget. Emma,
salary transparency between contracts.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I said leveraging content creators and connecting them with brands to let the sport and the industry flourish.
So what would you say?
I would say what I've been saying for like the last hour or whatever.
Well, this okay.
Which is, community, running community. I mean, it doesn't have to be private. Everyone's essentially doing the same things, just structured a little differently. So let people in, if people want to come see, a group workout, as long as it's not invading the workout, maybe let people come by.
I was wondering what direction you're
taking. Yeah.
Okay.
I just think that like we live in, this small community, and everyone kind of knows, at least who's like running a ton and always out on the farm roads, knows who each other is. That, it shouldn't be so private and closed off. I think people can like dip around other groups and check things out, and, they don't have to like drop into your workout or ruin it, but I think like it shouldn't be a secret. It shouldn't.
I was gonna say, now are we gonna do like a drop-in fee for this that goes to TTC, or no?
Well, the clarifying question I have for you is that approach best for these like semi-elite and all-comers kind of things, or are you referring to like spectating like a protein workout? Because we do have that luxury being in Boulder of that proximity.
I think both.
Both.
The thing that I kind of relate, spring ball for baseball, like
Yeah.
fans go to
Oh,
watch
yeah.
Exactly.
spring training.
It's
and
huge.
like go to watch open college practices,
Yeah.
right? And like the press stuff, like that is
Yeah.
a massive element. Like the preseason games for NFL, and we always relate stuff to the major sport leagues too, but it is very difficult to figure out when the 10-man guys are going to work out, because you don't know if they're going at 10 a.m. or whatever. But it would be
Yeah.
super cool to like,
I think it's difficult for them to know when they're working out.
right? Yeah. So
I mean, yeah.
if the people on the team don't even know, then how are people going to go spectate? But it would be really cool to see, especially I'm thinking back, like when I was in high school, getting really, really into the sport. If I could have gone 2 miles down the road to the Ohio State indoor track and just known that like some of my idols that I like know every PR from high school and in college, like watch the local Ohio State guys practice, that would have been so cool.
Yeah.
But the fact that like that just isn't a thing just because we all kind of do stuff on our own and stuff, I feel like is a huge missed opportunity.
Yeah, and I think having CU like right in the center of town and not being allowed in that facility, and like the cross country courses right over there and open for dogs, but it would be really cool to just like watch people rip cross country laps.
Well, that was so fun about when Klecker and Ollie ran that mile time trial at Niwot High School. So fun. It was supposed to be like a secret.
It was
quote
supposed to be a
unquote.
secret. It was supposed to be a secret.
And I got to be one of the timers for it. And like that was so fun. I would love that there to be more of that kind of stuff. And then like,
Totally.
you know, that relates to your point of community as well. Like where like people are able to come and watch, and then there was so many high school kids there too, you know, and just like you get to watch the first 4 or sub 4 minute mile on Colorado soil. Like that was awesome.
Yeah.
That was so fun. And just like the amount of people that were there for like literally this like 4-minute event, and we came out and everything and just like had a total blast. Like I would love to go and like watch Sage Hurta just like rip 400s, you know, like I'd go and watch that.
Totally.
Like, that'd be sick.
For the folks who don't have the luxury of being in these like hotbeds of training, right? For like the folks who aren't in Flagstaff and Boulder and these other spots, like how do you think? Yeah, there's the only two that come to mind.
Only two that matter.
Yeah, I didn't say that.
Okay.
For folks who don't have like the proximity to these athletes, like what's the best way you think that we can still create community for people to resonate with around those folks? Is it like documenting, you know, daily practices? Is it like the 10-man method where it's like a season of vlogging? Or is it, you know, maybe it's like, do you think it's like Sweat Elite coming in to work out with Nell Rojas and her build for the marathon? Like, what do you think is a feasible way of doing that?
I mean, I think I love the transparency on Strava when people are willing to actually share their stuff and not hide it. And they don't have to be like, today I did, you know, 15 by a K, but
it's a manual entry.
But just like leaving it out there in the open, I always respect that. Coming from the ski and snowboard world, I always loved the like films, the snowboard films that would come out. And I just think that it would be so cool for a running group to do something along that line, like a YouTube series of just like, here we are going to the coolest places for 6 months and just running. Like, you want to see what running in Tokyo is like? Here we are running in Tokyo. And that's something that has kind of yet to be done. It's just a group going to all the coolest places and just showing like what that running culture would look like. So that's something for the taking.
Well, TTC Media.
TTC. All right, do not take it. Trademark.
Trademark.
But I think that people want to know what other people are doing, and I don't think people necessarily want to copy what other people are doing, because I think that, you know, someone from some high schooler does try to go out and do 15 by a K, they're probably gonna get. I think it's just like running is a beautiful sport and it's an art, and it takes you to some of the most beautiful places in the world. And I think that's what people want to see.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Running the Show. Thanks again to Brian for coming on for this episode. You can subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen to your podcast. Follow us on social media at running.theshow, and we'll see you next episode.